Oh, never mind. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the InkGuild Podcast. I'm Dean, joined today by Jessica, Gabe, and we have a new friend of ours coming in. Her name's Marie-Soleil. You want to say hi?
Hello.
I fucked that up. Shit!
This is going very well.
I literally was like, do you want to say hey?
You want to say
No!
Fire in the dress, 'cause this devil wears a halo, a halo. Halo, 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 halo. Halo, 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 halo. Halo, 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 halo. This devil wears a halo, a halo. Halo, 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 halo.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to the InkGuild Podcast. My name is Dean, joined today by Jessica, Gabe, and we have a new friend of ours coming in for our first episode. Her name's Marie-Soleil. You want to say hi?
hello?
Gabe, Jessica, you guys can say hello again if you want.
Hello. Hello.
So, like we've been doing the last few episodes, we're getting to introduce ourselves, but you've probably heard from me enough, as well as from Gabe and Jessica, so we're going to quickly hand it over to Marie-Soleil. And basically, dude, we've been talking about like where we were coming up, or like how we got started as writers, all that stuff. So let's just start with, what were some of your earliest influences when it came to writing? Like, were you reading a lot as a kid or stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I grew up reading. My dad read Western novels. My mom read romance novels. I read fantasy books. My older two sisters read. My younger sister not as much. But we were a big reading family.
That's cool. How like did you guys kind of get like a regular supply of books, or like were one of you guys working near a library or something, or like? Because if you guys were all reading, that's quite a lot.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town, and literally you could walk anywhere in this town. So I would go to the library quite often, and then it was on my way to school when I was in middle school, so I'd just stop at the library on my way home. And it was kind of cool because my dad actually built the library. He's a framer, so he built the building, so that just made me want to go there more often.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, like you were talking, like you had mentioned, like how everyone had their own kind of genre. Like, why? I guess to start off with you, like, why was it always fantasy, or why was it fantasy that kind of you were reading a lot?
I think it started with Harry Potter, and then that just kind of like, that was the fantasy genre, and then when people got me books, it was fantasy books, and that's just what I kept reading after that. There's Tamora Pierce was one of my favorite authors growing up, and she has a lot of like medieval kind of kingdom style fantasies.
Cool. So Harry Potter was the big one. It seems like Harry Potter was like the big one for a lot of kids. I guess for me, it wasn't really. Like, I eventually started reading Harry Potter, I think into my preteens, but not as a kid.
I tried to teach myself how to read with Harry Potter when I was 7 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was determined to read it. I was so excited when I finished the first chapter because it took me like a month. I was also in French immersion, and I have dyslexia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, see, now things start to make a little bit more sense. So you had, like, did you have a copy of so you had an English copy of Harry Potter then?
Yeah, I was reading it in English, so at home I was learning how to read in English. At school I was learning how to read in French, and I was struggling with dyslexia.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, that's quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like,
I don't think I gave up on reading it, and I didn't actually finish it until I was in the 4th grade.
Oh my god. And that was just like the first book, or like?
The first book, yep.
Nice. Takes a lot of, it's really something special then to continue to keep reading it at that point. Like, I don't know about you, but I think when it comes to me, like certain stories, if it doesn't really click with me, at first, then there's no point in really me continuing it in the first place. So
Yeah. I liked what I had read of the story so far, and I had seen the first movie, so I wanted to finish reading the story. Just took me a while to get there.
yeah. So, as you know, once we've gotten your reading influences, what made you want to be a writer?
I think it was the attachment I had to the characters and the authors I was reading. I wanted to be able to give other people that. Like I said, I was in French immersion up until grade 3, and then I switched to English. And I don't know if, like, in a small town at a school that it's split in French immersion and English, you don't really, like, the two sections don't really talk much.
It was here in Alberta, right? Like, was it here in Alberta, or was it? Okay.
It was here in Alberta, yeah, in the Edmonton area.
Okay.
You didn't really talk much with the people in the other, like, language, so I switched from a class with my friends to a class with nobody I knew. And reading books kind of gave me, like, I don't want to say friends, because that sounds like I was, like, a loner, but it kind of was. And I wanted to be able to, like, write stories for other people to read in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. So, I guess, you know, I've given the preliminary warning, but if you want to talk about your earliest works, what were they like? So, like, what was your first story?
My first story was about a princess who didn't want to marry the prince of a neighboring kingdom, so with the help of her maid, she ran away.
That's so sweet. How do you remember how long it ended up being? Like, I think, like, we'd briefly talked about in the first episode when the three of us were doing it, but, like, my first story ended up like 4 or 5 pages, I think. Yeah, so how long was your like, if you can remember, how long do you think it ended up being?
I never really finished it because I wanted it to be long, but I had a story to tell. I didn't have a plot though. So, like,
ain't that the motto of my current writing life though?
Yeah. It got to the point where, like, she's packing to run away, but that was, like, as far as I got. Like, I had no idea, where is she going to go? What's she going to do?
It's just, like, she's going somewhere. I don't know where yet, but she's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, have your stories in the few years following, like, have they kind of stuck close to fantasy still? Like, have you ever tried differentiating a little bit, or?
I've mostly stuck to fantasy. I've tried to write, like, romance, sort of, but I always get hung up on little things. Like, it's easy to do fantasy because I can create all of that, but then when it's, like, not fantasy, it's like I have to follow real world rules. Or at least that's how I feel when I'm writing.
No, I feel the same way too, and I'm pretty sure, you know, Gabe and Jessica might agree, and I'll get their perspective in a second. But yeah, like, there's something, I guess, just about writing fantasy in general, especially when you're young, where it's like, I can write whatever the hell I want. Like, if my characters fly, I can fly, or I can fly, they can fly, and as a kid, you don't really have to worry too much about explaining it because, you know, you're kind of just doing it for fun. You're not really knowing how to be super specific as of then. But, like, yeah, I think there's just something about writing fantasy where it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's definitely a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Gabe, Jessica, what do you guys think about that? Like, writing fantasy specifically to, like, as a kid?
I would honestly say, yeah, it's pretty much that. It's as you said, it's like this idea of just I can do anything. I can make whatever I want. I can have this character shoot lasers out of his fingers. I don't have to have a reason. He just does that. He'd just be like that. And I think as an adult, I still do that, but I need to have, like, some kind of reason, or at least some kind of precursor to that, like his hands start glowing before it happens, so that he's not just something to create an environment where that sort of stuff can happen. And I think as a kid, there's sort of a exploring the wacky machinations of a kid's imagination.
Yeah, Jessica, how do you think about that, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think as a kid, I wrote quite a bit of fantasy stuff, and like even as a teenager and like in high school and stuff, I still write fantasy now actually. So it's, I mean, as a kid it was a lot easier because I read lots of like Harry Potter and stuff like that, so I could like put my own hand at creating like crazy super villains who had like awesome powers and could do a whole bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And like Gabe said, you didn't really need to like justify it. It was basically whatever you say goes. I think that was really fun, actually. I think that's what kind of like made me stick with it, because I realized that I was in charge. I could do whatever I wanted as long as I could justify it. And like I could make up whatever kind of world I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially writing as a kid, it's a lot less... I think demanding might be the word that I'm trying to go for. Like, it's certainly, like I've already said, you don't have to be super descriptive with everything. Like, you don't have to say, like Gabe said, that, you know, your hands start glowing before you shoot lasers out of your fingers. It's almost like it just happens. So,
yeah.
I guess to ask Marie-Soleil, like, when you were writing fantasy, like, what really were you... Like, what was your kind of fantasy in general? Like, was it like the kind of fantasy where it's like Lord of the Rings fantasy, or was it like, you know, some other kind of fantasy? Like,
it was kind of that. It was like the magic fantasy. I had a lot of in my mind were strong female characters that kicked butt, but like when I reread through all of my notebooks, they're like they're Mary Sue characters essentially.
Yeah.
But it was like the kid I wanted to go on these adventures that I couldn't go on.
Yeah. Like, I think for my fantasy, it was basically like that too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think, remembering what I guess the three of us had been talking about already, like, it seems like that's a uniform thing. It was things that we necessarily couldn't do, or we probably always thought of doing, but it just couldn't happen. So I guess moving on from that, over the years, as you started writing a little bit more, maybe writing a little bit less, depending on how you were going through in life, like, how have you kind of found your writing style? Like, how have you kind of evolved your writing from something that you were trying to do for fun to something that maybe you were thinking, oh, I could probably start doing this for a living? Like, yeah, so I guess to start, like, when was the point where you knew you wanted to take writing a little bit more seriously?
I think that would have been when I was in high school, and I wrote a story because there was a news article that it happened in like Halifax, but I wrote kind of a story that was loosely based on that, and it was just, I shared it with my English teacher, and she was like, this is really a really good story. And it was because I focused on like the characterization, and the words are just
words are just nothing.
They're not working right now.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel that. Like, was this somewhere around like grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, something like?
This would have been I was in grade 12, and this article came out about how a girl was assaulted, and the article focused on the football players that did it and how they cried at their court case. And so I wrote like this short, like, it was just a little short one-shot kind of story about how they would feel from like the girl's point of view. And yeah. Was
it for an assignment, or was it something you did on the side?
It was for a play, actually. There's my school competed in these one-act competitions, and I wrote the story to turn into a one-act. And yeah.
Did you take that? Like, did you take it anywhere? Like, did you adapt it for this? Like, did you, take it to the stage?
Yep.
The story? Yeah.
I wrote the script of it. I directed it. I actually directed it and did the sound on it because my sound guy got it grounded. And we won best makeup.
Oh, that's sweet. Which,
Yeah.
like, where did you take it? Like, did you take it to, like, one of the big production houses, or?
No, it was just a school my school did our own, like, in-house contest, and then the finalists from that went on to a bigger contest, and we didn't make it to the bigger One Act Festival, but...
Okay, so, or what was it about that story that made you want to take writing more seriously?
It was, like, the way, like, my drama teacher was the first person to read it, and she was like, it was really well written, but that if I tightened up a couple of things, it would be even better. And she said that, like, I had a good grasp of how different people would react. Not everyone's going to react to something the same way. And I showed that really well with my characters, and that I needed, like, to do more of that, and that I could go places with my writing. Just kind of her support.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to that. We'll actually get to that in a minute. But, like, yeah, so it seems like you had the potential there, and people were kind of pushing you to keep going. Yeah, it's pretty good. So, I guess over the years, actually, like, what's helped your writing get better? Like, starting from that princess story all the way up until maybe, that stage story. Like, how have you kind of gotten better with your writing since?
I saw this advice on Tumblr, actually, that says, like, when you're thinking about your character's flaws, don't just, like, sprinkle them in as a last minute addition. They have to be something that's been there all the way through.
Yeah.
And it might not be, like, a flaw at first glance, but in excess, it's a flaw. Like, loyalty seems to be a good trait, but in excess, it can lead to, like, your blinded loyalty. So you follow your friend no matter where, and it turns out your friend wasn't the best person to follow, kind of thing.
So I guess it was more just, like, knowing more about, like, personality, characterization, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking at all the different advice that's out there and picking what you need.
That's good. Yeah, I think for me, I think I might have already discussed it in the first episode, or maybe I just elaborated on it over time. But I think what's helped me get better, at least, has been, I guess, just doing it a lot more, like, really dedicating to it. And I think I might have talked about it in the first episode, but basically for me, my point of taking writing more seriously was also in high school, and it was in junior high when I got a good mark on a short story that I did, which coincidentally wasn't my style at all, but it told me that, you know, regardless of whatever I write, my potential is there. So I guess just kind of doing it more after that and really getting that encouragement was super important to me, and it's helped me, I think, largely get better. It's just doing it more and more, because then you kind of learn, or I learned more from it over the years. Like, I knew how to incorporate punctuation better. I knew how to incorporate everything else. I think moving on, so you were talking about your drama teacher, who was a big influence in helping you get better. So was she your main support system?
Yeah, she was definitely a main factor.
Oh no! Marie-Soleil, I'm so sorry. Discord cut out for me.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, it's. Oh no! I was comfortable for way too long. I had my guard down and everything. So, yeah. So can I just quickly, like, ask again? What was your main support system like?
So, like, my parents were very supportive of me, and so were my teachers. But, like, with my parents, I was never entirely sure when they told me that I was doing good, like, I wrote something well, if it was because it was actually well written, or if it was because they were trying to, like, be supportive and encourage me. And with my teacher, she would tell me what I did wrong. So I could, like, my parents helped me keep writing, and my teacher helped me write better.
That's good. I think that's pretty much along the same lines of, me at least. Like, as I've said in previous episodes, I've had that initial encouragement from my mom, who like, despite not initially wanting me to be a writer, I think she's pretty much content, at least, with the idea that I decide to do it full time. She's probably still not going to be happy about it, but I'm an Asian, that's what happened. So like, I think, yeah, so parents definitely, especially I think early on, like, how long have your parents been supporting you, like, when you were writing at first, like when you were starting to write? Like, were they really supportive of that decision?
Yeah, I think they supported it as a hobby. I don't think they ever anticipated it in becoming like something that I wanted to do as a living, or if they did, they always thought that I would change my mind. But they always supported me.
Yeah. So, and you were talking about your teacher who was helping you like really learn how to like how to do it properly. And I think for us, like, that was with, or at least for me, like, I had a teacher who was like that for me, and like, bless his soul, he was super busy, so I never really could get my thing properly workshopped. But that's not his fault. He was an English teacher as well as being my musical theater teacher, so he had a lot on his plate already. But I think little things here and there, he would like, I could probably, like, I knew that I could go to him for support because he was also a very big person to read other people's stories. And I know about that because I haven't mentioned it up until now, actually, but in my high school, we did this thing called the Literary Cafe once a year. And what that was that students would come in from whatever grade and share their stories, right? Like, you could share short stories, you could share poems, you could share whatever. And I think that kind of environment too, like, I can't believe I hadn't brought it up until now, but my support system really kind of cultivated there, because it's like, oh wow, I'm suddenly not alone as a writer anymore, as a very passionate writer, mind you. Like, there were other people that loved doing it too. And with that teacher, like, I really wanted to get his input for a lot of my stories, and I guess it was through him that, I had that kind of support from my, like, it felt like I had that support from my parents that with that teacher. Like, he was encouraging a lot of literary students to keep going and, keep doing what they do. But I just rambled for a whole minute.
All right.
Yeah. So, like, on top, like, they were your main support system. Like, how was it? Like, what was the input from friends?
From friends? Sorry, just trying to remember. My friends were always supportive, but like, supportive in the encouraging me to write, not so much in like they wanted to read what I had written, if that makes sense. And I feel like sometimes they, like, at least in high school and everything, they didn't, like, they cared, but not like in the, I don't know, this sounds weird. They had their own things going on, kind of thing. I know my friends, like, they want me to succeed and they want me to be happy, but it always felt like it wasn't something that they were interested in, so they didn't really care about the writing itself. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's fair. Like I had talked about it before, but I think the creative writing classes in university have been a pretty big benefit, because, not only do you kind of start making friends, obviously, but like, now you have people who understand what you do more than previous friends could have. And it was actually, like, I don't know how many creative writing classes you had been in at the time, but my first creative writing class I took in my second year, and it was actually with 3 out of the 4 of you. So I was with, or 3 out of the 4 of us. So I was with you, I was also with Jessica, and we also had, we had our own class basically, but it was still taught under our prof Micheline. Like, I'll get your input in a second, but I just wanted to say that that class really was super beneficial for me because it gave me the feeling of what I was experiencing with the literary cafe. So you had a community of people that, you know, that understood what you were doing, but at the same time, it's like something that wasn't a one-off. Like it was something that happened in our class at least like twice a week. So you had fairly regular input, and I loved the atmosphere there. Like I really enjoyed that class.
It was fun.
Yeah. How did you how did you come into joining that class?
In that class,
Yeah, so like what made you want to take a creative writing class in the first place? Just to, you know, I could probably connect the dots myself, but like
well, I like writing, and I felt like it would help. It was going to be something that would help me with my writing, and I needed the gen ed. I think it was a gen ed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it fit the requirement, and I wanted to take it. I spoke to one guy who recommended Micheline as a teacher, and he also suggested that I took a creative writing minor.
So is that what
It was fun.
Yeah. So I guess you've kind of stuck around since, and like what made you want to, like, in that first class actually with Jessica and I, what kind of made you want to continue doing these classes?
I like the support of the workshops. Like, you're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of different people, and these are people that very likely wouldn't pick your type of book off of a bookshelf in a store, but they're going to read it and they're going to give you genuine feedback on it.
Yeah. I think that's probably what like I really enjoy about these classes. Like everyone goes in there not always being a fantasy writer. Like some people haven't been writing all that much in general. Some people have been doing short stories. Some people kind of specialize in their own genre. And it's kind of funny that the four of us are all fantasy writers at one point, but like, yeah, the regular input, I think, from these creative classes and how Micheline has structured it to be a workshop rather than a classroom, it's like, it's been super helpful. I guess that kind of impact has, you know, carried on until right now because, you know, we're all friends and, you know, despite everyone having busy lives, life getting in the way and whatever, like, I think because we get it, and I've already said this before, so, you know, be prepared to hear it again, but for the people who get it, like, it's something that kind of keeps people together in a sense. Like, no one aside from us kind of understands the struggle of writer's block or being at a loss for ideas or just whatever. Like, no one truly understands it, and the fact that we do, like, it's enough to keep us all talking, but also, like, you know, we'd have we'd have like writing challenges, drawing challenges, like you know, like we were doing we had done a drawing challenge not that long ago where, you know, you were asked to draw my character, I think, and you gave Gabe one of your characters. And you know what, actually, yeah, let's talk about that. Like the drawing challenge, how did you, like, what were you thinking when I kind of pitched that idea in the first place?
It was interesting. It was something different. Like, I occasionally will draw my own characters, but I've never really had anybody else draw them or drawn anybody else's characters.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of, like, the drawing challenge, it was a cool way to, like, test a different side of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's certainly something for me, at least, to see, like, my character envisioned by someone else. Like, I had given you my reference photos when I asked you to draw my character, and like I was surprised and pretty happy that you gave her 2 scars, and it worked out really well, because I tried doing 2 scars, but I think it wouldn't have worked out that way. But yeah, so after that, we, like, some of us had done a writing challenge where we had to write to a song that we were given. That was really fun. And I think for the people who are listening to this, like, we are currently kind of on the midst of having a really good video game idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I could describe it within a few sentences. So Marie-Soleil, Alex, and I have basically come up with a video game of Medusa as the main protagonist, who in a continuation of that story in our own kind of way. It is Medusa exacting revenge on everyone that had done her wrong. And I think I was the first one to kind of pitch that, just kind of like as just a one-off idea. It's like, oh, here's this or whatever, and I didn't really think anything of it, but then suddenly, like, you know, you hopped in, like Marie-Soleil, you hopped on the idea, and then Alex hopped on the idea, and then suddenly it became such a huge enough thing that, like, as of tomorrow, we're gonna have our own drawings of these characters. Like, that is super fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think going back to the idea of, you know, us getting it, like, no one really kind of gets as excited about a story idea sometimes as much as we do. Like, I could tell this exact same story to, you know, my non-creative writing friends, and they'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But they wouldn't start elaborating on the plot as much as we have, or they wouldn't start, like, really, I guess in general, they wouldn't really start caring about it all that much, because they don't understand just how exciting it is to have that kind of prospect in your hands. If that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Or they start poking holes in it.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, like, one of the big things that I think talking about this idea in general is like, oh, it'll feel pretty much like God of War before, you know, before the 2018 remake. And I think that's the point of my initial idea, at least. Like, it would be so cool to have that kind of video game where not only are you playing as a badass female protagonist, but it's a badass female protagonist that has a justified reason. And, you know, for those who don't know the story of Medusa, Google it. But, like, it is such a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, my description of it has not done it justice, but if it comes out eventually, world, listen up. If it comes out, that's down to the three of us. We made that possible. So, I guess that's the end of part 1. And if I could kindly ask Gabe and Jessica to unmute if they have been if they have muted themselves, we are now going to be going into part 2. And part 2, as I've explained in the pre-recording that we do, is going to be book adaptations. And when you think of book adaptations, it's more commonly that you would think of books to movies, but I'm talking just in general, like books to TV shows, books to video games, possibly books to whatever else. And I think this whole idea kind of started when earlier this week we had gotten, or like it had been announced. Was it earlier this week? I don't remember, but it had been announced by Rick Riordan and whatever, and I can't remember the other person, but it had been announced that Disney Plus was working on a Percy Jackson series. And first of all, what do you guys think on that?
Going off what their adaptation of Artemis Fowl looks like, not hopeful.
All right. Not what I was expecting, but I'm glad we have that input. Guys, what about you? Like, what do you think? Jessica, Marie-Soleil.
As someone who has unfortunately never seen the Percy Jackson movie or read the Percy Jackson series, a lot of people were very, very angry about the movie, so I hope Disney kind of realizes that and actually, like, reads the damn book before they make it.
The author is going to be, like, heavily influenced. I think he's writing the screenplay for it.
Good.
Thank God.
For it.
Good.
I think he posted on Twitter that they're actually casting characters that are the right age. The actors are the right age of the characters, so they're actually going to be 12-year-olds instead of 16-year-olds.
Good. funny enough, I found out through TikTok. Because literally, oh my god. I'm not going to get too into it, but TikTok has been my best friend since this quarantine started. But yeah, no, I found out through TikTok, and I am so happy because, you know, as I've said, like I said in the pre-recordings to you guys earlier, but I watched the movie first before I actually knew what the Percy Jackson books were about. Like, I knew it was a book, but I wanted to see the movie first because at that time I was like stupid and like I didn't like think like I wasn't really reading all that often, and I wanted to watch the movie first because, you know.
So how long was it after you saw the movie that you read the book?
I think a few months after, actually.
Okay.
So a few
you didn't
months,
go that.
No, I didn't. I didn't go like years after it, but like I watched the movie. Pretty much enjoyed it, actually, knowing nothing about the series, and I really liked it. Like, as a kid, like, it didn't really take much to impress me in the first place, but that was back when, like, I was still a writer, but I didn't really know a lot about writing in the first place. So, you know, sat through the movie, really enjoyed it, and eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to read the book. And then I read the book. And whenever now I think about the movie, I think that the movies are dog shit. because the books are just so good. And it's almost criminal what they have done to the movie, and that's why I wanted to talk about book adaptations, because like Gabe said, he thinks of Artemis Fowl and it's just a catastrophe, because I'm not familiar with Artemis Fowl, but that seems like it almost feels like another victim of, I guess right now, books to movie adaptations.
A lot of book to movie adaptations, it can be like, you can have, there's some issues, but at the very least you can go into them expecting that they will retain the basic premise, and Artemis Fowl does not even do that. It's literally just, I don't even know what it takes from the books. I think it takes characters' names, and that's it.
Do you want to tell us?
Oof.
Okay, so Artemis Fowl, the books are about, there's this awesome series about this kid, I think he's like 13 years old, this kid who's like this criminal mastermind, and the whole first book is he's trying to pull a heist on some fairies. It's like an urban fantasy with this criminal mastermind protagonist, and it was awesome when I was a kid, because it was like, oh man, this is like, he's like a good guy, but he's not a good guy. He's trying to steal all these fucking gold from these fucking fairies. He's kind of a dickhead about it. He kidnaps this fucking fairy, and he's like, I want your fucking gold. I'm paraphrasing, but he spends and the movie has decided, instead of that Artemis Fowl now discovers that his father was a criminal mastermind who was involved with fairies, and now the fairy who he gets involved with trying to steal the gold now comes to him intentionally to get his help to save.
But I'm confused.
Yeah.
Alright, well, it cut off for me again. So I missed the last 30 seconds of that. You don't have to start over, just like explain the last 30 seconds.
Okay, so yeah.
So basically, like, so you would so apparently the movie is like, oh, so it's not actually him, but the father who's the criminal mastermind. That's where it cut off.
Who is the criminal mastermind? Who's not in the movie? The movie is about him finding out that his deceased father is a criminal mastermind, and then he has to go save the world of the fairies from some sort of big gremlin apocalypse or something dumb like that.
Yeah.
It's like Artemis Fowl is not a mature series. They did not have to whittle it down to make it child friendly. It was already a child friendly series. I read it when I was like a little fucking baby, but they have taken it and taken away the whole thing that made it interesting. That he was sort of a chaotic neutral character. He was sort of like a bad dude who just happened to be this child who was a criminal mastermind, and it was awesome. And they've made him a hero. They've made him a good guy, like an unequivocal good guy. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, like there's I don't know what it is about book to movie adaptations, and I'll get to one in a second that I want Jessica to talk about. But Oh, if you can kind of hint at it, I think you know which series I want you to talk about in a minute. But there's just something that they seem to get wrong. Like you can have the character names, you can have the premise, you can have the whole background lore and everything, but for some reason it just doesn't work. And to pass it over to Jessica, you and I have a common enough series called The Mortal Instruments. There you go. That's why I wanted to speak about it. So,
oh my god.
Yeah. So, for some people who have been living under a rock, to use that analogy, The Mortal Instruments is Cassandra Clare's pretty much first big series, and it had 2 movies out of 6-7 books.
6 books,
yeah.
A movie, and a TV show.
Yeah. So, please do tell us, how do you feel about that book to live entertainment adaptation?
Okay, so me and my friend actually rewatched Mortal Instruments, The City of Bones movie with Amy Campbell Bower and Lily Collins.
Mm.
And we agreed that the first half of the movie is pretty darn good. Like, they did such a good job with like casting, like, and I'm totally biased because I love Jamie Campbell Bower. He is my life. So great. And he was such a good Jace. He was so sarcastic and good looking, and he was wearing like all leather, and I was like, I'm so here for this. But then the last half of the movie, I was like, what is this piece of shit you put on the screen? I'm not watching this. And there were so many issues. It was like plot holes. They changed like the entire ending of the first book for no apparent reason.
Oh yeah, they did,
Isabel
didn't they?
Had like a fucking flamethrower. I was like, she's a Shadowhunter. She doesn't need a flamethrower. I'm so confused. And then like,
you gotta get that visual, you know what I'm saying, for the trailer, but it didn't fucking work.
Like Simon is supposed to get kidnapped by vampires after he's turned into a rat at a party run by Magnus Bane, the freewheeling bisexual warlock. And instead, he's just like tortured and hung up on a roof by a bunch of vampires, and nobody knows why. And oh my god, it was so confusing.
You can hear the passion in her voice. Just, I knew that this would be a good one to talk about. Yeah. So you had mentioned that there was a series. How, like, does the series do a better job of adapting the books?
A series?
Yeah, the TV series.
The worst job.
All right,
because, like,
please explain.
Okay, so the movie had like amazing casting, and like I said, like their set design and their costume design was just incredible. And like, forget his name, the actor who plays Moriarty in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes is in the movie as like secretly a villain, but like he's also kind of friends with like the main characters for a while. He was like so good. Imagine that character just looking exactly like him, and it was so good. And in the TV show, they're like, how about we make this small former Shadowhunter librarian a buff dude? I was like, no. And then okay. So in the movie, it had like amazing effects and costume design and set design and whatever. The casting was a lot better. Then in the TV show, the biggest issue with the TV show was they made Clary older. She's not 16. She's like 21 or something, or like 18.
Is she really?
It's like, yeah, in the series, she's like celebrating like her 18th birthday or something. But in the books, at the beginning, she's like, I was like, guys, it's like 2 years. Why?
Yeah.
Eat it so that she was like an arts like college student, and I was like, no. First of all, no.
Wait, is it still? So I've never seen the series. Like, is it still kind of like following in the exact same order as the first book? Like everything still kind of happens as it's supposed to? No.
Not at all.
Okay. So it's still the Mortal Instruments, but it's just set differently. That's interesting.
So it's like it's like Gabe said, it's the characters, it's the world. It's not the same story whatsoever.
Shit. Well,
like at least the movie kept like Jocelyn, Clary's mother, was like kidnapped by her like ex-husband who's batshit crazy, and then like a bunch of other stuff happens, and Clary realizes she can see like invisible people who are shadow hunters. The movie did all of that, and it was great. Just the ending, the movie screwed up.
Yeah.
The TV show, literally, Clary meets them like once, and then she shows up in like all leather and like heels for the rest of the season. That bothered me so much.
What?
Because in the books, very specifically wears like Converse runners and jeans.
What the hell?
And
Like
the show just walks around in like a leather jacket and like heels, and I'm like, no,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, I saw that for like promotional material. I'm like, okay, I don't think that's right, but it certainly markets your show in a way. But like, I didn't realize that they like it felt like suddenly they were just marketing to a completely different audience that wasn't the Mortal Instruments audience.
Yeah, I think they were going for like a Riverdale vibe where it was like super edgy, and I was like, hey,
Yeah.
not what the Mortal Instruments is. They're just a bunch of nerdy people with like really looking tattoos. Like that's it.
Yeah, I think hearing all this though, it feels definitely like a CW show.
Yeah.
Like
it was like a Netflix original show, I think.
Yeah. But like I think I think like you compared it to like kind of a Riverdale vibe, and I think Riverdale was on CW, and you know, if you can think about like CW shows in general, like Supernatural, the Arrowverse, like there's such like an obvious kind of market to like to those shows. Like it's supposed to be marketed towards the fan base, but for some reason it's just not ever really marketed to them. Like it's supposed to be kind of watered down for a general audience. And excuse me for the slander for anyone who might be listening, but like that's just what it feels like, and that's what I think. Like Supernatural is the exception because it didn't really have a previous fan base to start off with. It gained one over time. But like with the Arrowverse, like the characters almost feel completely different sometimes.
Yeah, so it was a wild ride. The TV show, I never finished it, but
would you finish it?
Yeah. So there's like small things like Clary wearing heels all the time and stuff, but then there's like really, really big things that they got wrong for no apparent reason. Like it didn't really make a difference. Like they made the Institute, so the Institute was supposed to be like this big stone cathedral where the shadow hunters live and like operate, like do all their cool shit and like eat pizza or whatever. And they turned it into like this modern cathedral looking place that had like internet and computers, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would they need a computer if they can just like, you know, kill demons with like their bare hands or like knives? What is the purpose? It was like big things like that they changed a lot of.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay.
So
Marie-Soleil, do you have a series like that where it feel like like, you know, like as we were talking, like that series like for Gabe, that series is Artemis Fowl. For Jessica, that series was The Mortal Instruments. I don't think I've gotten into mine yet, but yeah, do you have...
I don't know if my that series is Artemis Fowl. I think that was just tied into the Percy Jackson thing, but
okay. Yeah, but like I'm like obviously there's that one series where it started off as a book and then it got later adapted into whatever franchise or whatever movie, television, TV show, whatever, that they kind of did it wrong. Like, do you have that series in mind? Yeah?
Yeah, The Vampire Diaries.
Oof.
Ooh, okay.
I read those books, like, my sister read those books, and then she gave them to me, and I read the first 4 of them, and then I didn't read the rest of them because, like, I stopped liking the series. It was just, characters would die, and then they would come back, and then they would die, and then they'd come back, and it was just, like, after a while. And then they made the TV series, and I couldn't watch past the 2nd episode because I kept getting mad at it.
Oh my god. That's great.
Like, okay, so like walk us through it. Like how exactly?
The first thing that annoyed me is that in the books she has like a little sister that's like 5 years old, and in the TV show, she's got like a brother who's 16 and she's like 18 or something, and her brother has a relationship with somebody in her grade. Like, it's the whole Mean Girl thing where she and this girl are always competing to be like Queen Bee kind of thing, and her brother has a relationship with this other girl, and like, yeah, it's so, like I said, I couldn't watch past the second episode because I kept getting mad.
Someone who has watched Vampire Diaries like a few times. I never read the books. I didn't have anything to base it off of, but I heard that people who read the books hated the show for the most part, but people who've never read the books thought it was a great show, and I think that's hilarious.
I did, like, to be honest, I didn't even realize like the Vampire Diary. I always knew of the show. I never knew that there were books.
And they completely changed the character description, and I guess like they have to use the actress that they've got, right? But like in the books, the main character, she's supposed to be like this blonde hair, fair skin, blue eyes kind of girl, and in the books, in the TV series, she's completely different. She's not that at all, which also bugged me.
Oh yeah, Ina, her last name is Hungarian or something.
Mm-hmm.
She's definitely not blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah, it comes into play because there's a vampire. The vampire that turned the her Stefan and Damon is actually supposed to look pretty much identical to her, and there's theorized that they like are related, like the grand descendants or something.
Oh yeah,
of her
they're like
family line.
doppelgangers.
Yeah, in the books they theorize that she's probably related to her, and the location where the vampires come from doesn't fits with her being of Hungarian descent.
Makes sense, yeah.
But
At
it
least
doesn't
they
fit
did-
with the TV show.
At least they did keep that in the show, though. Like, they had the same actress playing both of them. At least they kept the version of it the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was that series. Gabe, you said that, like, do you have your own proper that series?
Yeah, I mentioned it before the call. The movie adaptation of Scott Pilgrim fills me with white hot gamer girl rage.
White hot gamer girl rage.
I just lemonade across my bed.
Oh my god, okay. Alright. I'm gonna say a quick prayer right now so that Discord does not interrupt me while you rant about this. Please.
Okay.
Technology,
Okay.
do not fuck me over.
Because I fucking during the first part of the recording, I was like going through and skimming through to get myself riled up to talk about this. Okay, can I?
I've heard Gabe talk about this before, and it's wild.
Can I? Quick aside. Just make sure everyone here has seen the movie. So,
Yes, I have seen the movie.
Just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So-
I think we all have.
Okay. So the movie, Scott he meets Ramona and he breaks up with Knives, and he has to fight her 7 ex-boyfriends. And then near the end, they break up. She gets back together with Gideon. He has to fight her, and they get together. The end. It's, for context, the books are 6. It's 6 books that they crammed, they force-fed into one movie. Like.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, it is 6 graphic novels.
Okay.
They're not that long each. Like, I think the best way to adapt it probably would have been like a 6-episode miniseries, probably.
Yeah.
But like it's not enough to warrant more than one movie.
Yeah. I just like to give some quick thing right now. Personally, I have never read the graphic novels. Just to put that out there.
Has anyone here read them?
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to
Good.
put that out there.
Even
we have
better. All right, so the best way to describe what makes me so furious with the movie adaptation of Scott Pilgrim is that it adapts it too literally. It takes so the whole idea of Scott Pilgrim is that he's this slouchy shithead stoner, but we don't see him smoke weed, but he has stoner vibes. 20-something guy who is like he meets this girl who he sees her and he immediately imprints this idea of like, oh, she's like an esoteric gamer girl. She's like a
You motherfucker.
sort of cold and distant and mysterious person.
Gabe.
Yeah? Don't tell me. Have I been cut off for that whole time?
Yeah.
Fuck!
I'm
Where
so
the
sorry.
Gamer girl rage.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
Where was I when I cut out?
I think you were just starting to introduce like the whole thing, or like you were just starting to really get into why everything was like why the movie adaptation was pissing you off.
What? How far back?
I think
Okay, should I just start over?
please.
Okay. So
I'm so sorry.
So I don't have to recap the movie because we've all seen it, but yeah, the books are, you get into the books, and well, the first thing that happens in the book is that, not the first thing, but the first scene that we have between Scott and Ramona is that Scott meets Ramona, and in the movie he's sort of like, he's into her because she's so weird and mysterious and distant. In the book, I think she shows up. She's talking to someone about X-Files or something, but he sees that she has like pink hair, and he's like, oh, gamer girl, I need to fucking simp. So he does, and and he immediately imprints. He projects this idea, the manic pixie dream girl stereotype, onto her, and he decides like, oh yeah, this is what she is. I know that she's like this just super cold and distant and mysterious person. So anytime that she rejects his advancements, he registers that as her being like mysterious and distant and not just rejecting his weird advances. And then eventually they do, of course, get together. But in the movie, Knives, Scott's high school girlfriend, and him, they break up like within the first 20 minutes, I'd say, of the movie. For reference, Knives and Scott don't break up until the second book of the series. So that whole time that Scott and Ramona are having a relationship in the first book, Scott is also very much having a relationship with Knives. So it's not sort of underplayed the way in the movie it really underplays. Am I cut out again?
No, you're good.
Okay. In the movie, it really I was just saying my Wi-Fi bar was low, so I was like, oh fuck. But
the problem is me. Discord cuts out for me. It works well for you guys. For some reason.
So the movie really underplays like how much Scott is actively cheating on both of them. Like, he does not break up with Knives for a while, and Knives in the movie is portrayed a lot like Ramona, very much opposite to how she is in the book. In the book, she's this kind of quirky, but just she's a fun, normal person. Ramona and Knives are both these just three-dimensional, sort of funny, interesting people that Scott is in a relationship with, and he has these very caricaturized ideas of who they are that he's very transparently imprinted onto them. He's only with Knives because he's like, oh, she's like a high school Asian girl. That's a thing that I romanticize because I'm a weird guy. Oh, Ramona has pink hair. That's a thing I'm going to fetishize because I'm a weird guy. But they're not defined by these things. But the movie says, no, fuck that. I'm going to make Ramona exactly the cold and distant and mysterious character that Book Scott thinks she is, and I'm going to make Knives the sort of like very clingy character that Book Scott thinks she is. It plays all of these characters like as the unironic, as like an unironic interpretation of what, like an unironic version, an unironic caricature of what Book Scott imprints on all these characters. So the movie is like, it's so weird. It's like it's filmed from the perspective of Scott without any of the learning. The whole book series is about Scott having to learn that, because he's basically grown up on video games, he's grown up on pop culture, he's grown up on movies, and he's grown up with this idea that if you do an adventure, if you do a quest, if you beat the big final villain, you will get the girl. And a lot of his past relationships have acted like that. He's had situations where, like, there's a whole thing that the movie does not have, where he has like a past of a lot of his girlfriends him having to have literally fought for them. So he's sort of developed this complex where he's like, I have to earn it, I have to win it. Women aren't a person who I have to share a relationship with. They're an award. A relationship is an award for me beating and overcoming a struggle. And in the books, he has to learn to overcome that. He has to learn to treat relationships like relationships and not treat them like he's being rewarded with a relationship by beating the villain. And like the way the movie handles it, I'm going to get into spoiler territory here to explain how badly the movie fucks this up, but the book ending and the movie ending are almost completely different. So we've all seen the movie, so we all know that in the movie, Scott and Ramona, once Ramona, at a certain point, Ramona and Scott break up. And Ramona is out of the picture for like a little bit. And then at a next concert, he sees that Ramona has gotten back together with her ex-boyfriend, Gideon. And so the climax of the movie is Scott going to fight Gideon for Ramona, who he then finds out has a secret mind control chip on her neck that has influenced her to go back to Gideon. In the book, Gideon and Ramona do not get back together after Scott and Ramona break up. And when Scott and Ramona break up, they are broken up for like a year. There's a year between books 4 or between books 5 and 6, where Scott and Ramona are just not together. Ramona's out of the picture. And then Scott gets a threat from Gideon saying, like, I'm gonna come and kick your ass so I can get Ramona back, because he also wants to get back together with Ramona. And Scott sees this and thinks, hey, if I go and beat up Gideon, I'll get Ramona back, because I'll impress her by beating up her creepy ex-boyfriend. Ramona is not present for any of this, for either of these two shitheads essentially going to beat each other up, because they're both stuck on the idea that if they beat the shit out of each other, they'll win back their gamer girl ex-girlfriend who they're completely obsessed with. Ramona only shows up halfway through book 6 after Gideon fucking kills Scott temporarily. He has the thing where he comes back, but Ramona only shows up after Gideon goes fucking nuts and tries to kill Scott. And she doesn't show up because I want to get back together with Scott. She shows up because I don't want him to fucking die. I don't want Gideon to fucking kill him. And then they do that. Scott gets legitimate closure with the women in his past. He gets legitimate closure with Envy, which is not in the movie at all. There's like no closure between them in the movie. There's a little bit of closure between them in the movie, I'm not going to say, but there's basically nothing. And then at the very end, Scott and Ramona don't get back together. They end off the story saying, we're going to be friends. It ends on the hint that they might get back together, but it doesn't say, oh, we'll be together now. It says we might try again, because you've grown as a person, you respect me as a person, now you've learned to respect me as a person, so maybe we'll try again, and maybe it'll work this time. And it ends on sort of an ambiguous note. The fucking movie ends with Knives turning to Scott, almost as if turning to the camera and saying, go get her. You've been fighting for her this whole time. Then Scott goes to Ramona and says, let's try again, which is the line from the book, but in the book, they've been broken up for like a year. In the movie, they've been broken up for like 6 days. So in context, try again means very different things. So the movie basically ends on the opposite note of the book, saying that Scott has won, and by overcoming the adversity, he has won having a relationship with Ramona, and completely flying in the face of everything the book stands for.
Yeah, oh my god. That is rough. Like, I seriously cannot wait. And we've entertained the idea before, but like, I'm very much sticking to the idea that I just need to, like, I need to find you when it's most opportune. That's a word I'm making up right now. I need to seriously just let you talk about whatever the fuck you want. Like, you've convinced me that even though I have never read the books, I now hate the movie with a passion.
I would say you have to read the books.
You have to read the movie.
The movie. It's called Subtitles, dude.
Okay. So, I think for me, that series isn't necessarily a series, but it is just a single book. And it's The Hobbit.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah. So,
oh my god.
Where the fuck do I even begin? I guess I can start with my attachment to it. So, The Lord of the Rings was the series that I really kind of latched onto as a kid. And keep in mind, I didn't even really read a lot of the Lord of the Rings books as a kid. Like, I think it took me being a lot more mature to really kind of read through those books. But The Hobbit was, they call it a children's book because it is seriously supposed to be read for children. It still has a lot of Tolkien's complexity with his world building and with all of these different characters of Middle Earth, but it is easy enough to understand, and most children can read it, right? Like, it's a pretty good read, especially for people who are just starting to get into fantasy. Highly recommend the book. But the movie, what the fuck? So, I think the one thing that bugs me still to this day is the unnecessary love story between Tauriel and Keely. I think that's.
Oh yeah, the dwarf.
The one dwarf. First of all, from the very beginning. Now that if I ever wanted to rewatch these movies, I remember what Keely looks like, and Keely is meant to look handsome. Literally, like, all the other dwarves minus Thorin look like actual dwarves. They look and they look and sound the part of a dwarf, and that's good enough. But it's really Keely who has like the short beard, kind of the longish hair. It's like he could easily be marketed to he could easily be marketed, right? And that's why he looks so appealing. And the thing is too, it's like, okay, I know that this is gonna play into a factor somehow. Even though I don't have a burning hatred for it then, like I knew that there was gonna be some kind of love story. And in comes Tauriel, who isn't even in the fucking book. Same with Legolas. It's like, where the fuck are you two coming from? Why? What are you doing? And I knew it then that they weren't there because I had read The Hobbit as a kid, but like, it really didn't sit well with me because it's like, what the hell are you two doing here? I get, like, you probably need to keep some kind of continuity or something, but you really did not need to do that. And I guess because it was a trilogy, they needed to extend the story somehow. But you didn't have to do that. And like, what else? Like, I think this is honestly just a little bit of a nitpicky thing for me, but like Frodo's cameo in the first episode is like, no, get the fuck out of here. This isn't your story. Get away. Radagast's role in the story, it's like, he was just mentioned in the book. I'm glad he was I'm glad he had a bigger role in the movies, but honestly, it's like, no, go away. Same thing. I think, the barrel scene. Oh my god, the barrel scene in the second book. It was so Hollywood-esque that it made me sick. It was like, when I first watched it, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. This is kind of cool, but like, it's so ridiculous now that I think, like, now that I really remember it and knowing everything that movie has done to my fucking book. Like, it's just like, I didn't write it. Hope everyone gets that across. I obviously didn't write it, but just like, it was part of my childhood, alright, guys? Like, it's like, no, stop, Hollywood. Tone it down. You have already made this movie way too long. Do not make me quit it right now. And I think, like, some of the few things, or one other thing that really annoyed me was Smaug getting ganked in the fucking first half, or not even the first half, literally the first few minutes of the third movie.
It's before the title shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, bruh, not only do you waste the whole point of that of that dragon, but you also waste Benedict Cumberbatch. And that is an injustice to my soul, because I love that man.
Oh my god, yes. I could not believe they only got him, like, a dragon for, like, I don't know, he's, like, barely in the movies.
Yeah, like,
excuse me.
Like, he did motion capture and everything. He had a great, like, his attitude towards being a fucking dragon is sweet. Like, he really carried himself with that kind of menacing, kind of, like, doomy kind of shit. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about anymore, but like, he really carried himself, and they wasted it. Like, it made for a pretty oh my god, like, I was about to say it made for a pretty fun sequence at the end, but I'm just remembering all the fucking, like, cartoony kind of action sequences that was happening in the second movie when all the dwarves had just returned to the Lonely Mountain. I'm like, oh my god. Like, I think it was in a CinemaSins video. It was like, this entire sequence is built like a video game. So like, you have dwarves like literally cartwheeling down these like gold or like these like ramps for molten gold, and it's like, oh god, oh my god. And like, I think, just, where did they go wrong? I know I had already talked about this, but I think it was the unnecessary love story that really kind of irks me still to this day. Like, I am of the firm belief that if your fantasy world is rich enough and you can tell a pretty consistent story throughout the entire thing, you don't need a romantic subplot. Mm-hmm. You really do not. Like, between the protagonist or any of the side characters, even, like, your world is so rich and so heavy in lore, especially with Middle Earth. I did not need to see a love story. Like,
yeah, I think Hobbit was, I only read The Hobbit like a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I didn't read it as a kid. I saw the movie before I read the book, and my friend was like outraged because The Hobbit is like her all-time favorite book ever. She's the one who gave me my copy. She was like outraged at it. She was like, this is like horrible, I can't believe they did all of this. And I was like, I thought it was an okay movie, but I didn't really know anything. And then I read the book, and I was like, excuse me, this is a book about friendship. Why would you put a love story in it?
Yeah, like, I think it's the same thing with what I was talking about with the Percy Jackson books earlier too. It's like, probably on their own, like, if you were to not read the books, like, if you were to keep like, really keep the good parts away and just focus on, like, the movies or something, like, they would probably be fine on their own. But the fact that they came from a book with so much material and so much good stuff written in it, that's like, stop. What the hell are you doing? And so I was talking about that series, and I think we all kind of got lost in tangents or whatever, but I think going back to, like, what I wanted to talk about is just, you know, like, there seems to be such a problem with books being adapted into different mediums. And I guess, just like, as an opinion, like, why do you guys think it's been kind of terrible? Not most of the time, not every time, obviously, but, and we'll get to that in a minute, but like, why do you think, like, you can't adapt, or why does it feel like adapting a good book into a decent enough movie seems like such a, like, it hasn't really worked out?
I think some things don't translate from book to screen very well. Like, I know in The Maze Runner, the main character and then like the only girl character have telepathy. I know they tried to include that in the Maze Runner movies. It doesn't translate well, so I think there's a lot of things that really only work in a book that don't really work on screen because they're very different. Like you don't get that inner monologue.
Like there's a lot of... Sorry, go ahead.
And then like in Twilight, when they try to include the inner monologue, it just comes off as like cheesy.
Oh my god.
There's so many things that just don't quite work, and I think a lot of directors and a lot of screenwriters try to, as a creative person, obviously you want to tell your own story, you know, and you want to like make it your own. So I think a lot of directors, a lot of screenwriters try and put their own spin on a story, rather than just kind of writing it as it is in the book. I think sometimes they try to, you know, do what they think is best rather than sticking to the book itself.
Yeah. Like, I think for me, I definitely do agree with that, but like, to elaborate on one point you made where directors kind of put their own twist on things, I agree, but I also kind of like, I'm also of the belief that because these book to movie adaptations are not just for the audience themselves, like it's not just for, like, you know, adapting Harry Potter was never supposed to be just for the Harry Potter fandom. You know what I mean? Like it like there was a cool idea there, and it felt like these books are meant to be adapted for a more general audience. And like, for the rest of your point, yeah, I do agree. Like, there's so much nuance and there's so many things that make certain books so special that, like, there are certain things that make an individual book themselves super special that suddenly, when you try to translate that for a general audience, be it through a movie or through a TV show, like, you kind of lose it. Like, with a movie, you're only given what, like 2 hours nowadays to kind of tell to tell your story, and some books, like, their journey doesn't even last like 2 hours. It can go on for days, and some authors can pack in like a lot of stuff in between those day-worth journeys, like really good conversations that, you know, that they have to cut, or like maybe an action scene here or there that like was super cool, but they had to cut it for the movie. Like, there's so many things that they like that you would miss when you're translating to a general audience, and I think that's probably the problem with...
I think for a lot of movies there's like those Hollywood tropes. Like, I think a lot of people, when they go see a movie nowadays, because many people have such short attention spans, consistently need like a lot of fast-paced like action kind of keep us involved. And like, especially if it's a fantasy series, you expect a lot of CGI and special effects. It just happens. You expect it when you go into the theater. I think that sometimes books are better at like that slow burn with pacing, because there's a lot more going on in a book than there is in a movie. So I think sometimes like love interests bring from people, you know, looking on the movie thinking, well, how are we going to interest people in this movie? Because, I mean, they want to make a great movie, but they also want to make money. So you need it to appeal to like a wide range of people. I think like a lot of romances and superfluous action scenes stem from that, because they're trying to keep our attention. So it sucks, but
yeah. Marie-Soleil, what do you think?
I agree on that. It's also like, I also think it's there's the money thing in it too is really important, because with a movie, the end goal is to make more money than you spend on making the movie.
Yeah.
So a lot of things can be cut out of that. Like, you'll have characters that are in the book that they think, well, this character isn't very important, so we're just going to leave him out so we don't have to pay an extra actor in the movie.
Yeah.
Or there's the fan service, like having Legolas in The Hobbit. That was fan service. But we'll put this guy in so we can get all the Legolas fans to come to the movie.
Gabe, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say you guys have pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of the problem, it varies from movie to movie, obviously, but I think a lot of the problem comes from like, I think there's a lot of people in Hollywood who, when they're adapting a book, they think they're so much better than what they're adapting, so they're like, no, even though this book is a huge success and that's why it's getting a movie adaptation, I'm gonna try and do this instead because I fucking know better. And you do get some examples of movies where they're actually right. They do know so much better, like The Princess Bride. But that's like a one in a million. Like, for context, I don't know if this is like common knowledge, but The Princess Bride is like kind of an insane adaptation. It's sort of, Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Yes.
Yeah, the Princess Bride movie is basically like that to the book. The book is very straight-faced. Like, there's almost no humor. There's no like, there's no colorful cast of characters. It's like the same story, but is played so much straighter. And the movie is like sort of an abridgment of the book.
Yeah, I've read The Princess Bride, and it was a lot drier than the movie. Although some of the lines in the movie are taken like pretty much straight from the book. It comes across as much funnier in the movie than in the book. The book, he seems a lot more serious. They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, I think a lot of it just comes from like, just people who they read a story, and you can tell this from a lot of interviews and a lot of cases where they'll very openly shit talk the content that they're adapting, the beloved. Like, you were talking about Benedict Cumberbatch earlier, and that got me fired up about Sherlock, because Stephen Moffat has been very open about his dislike for the books that he's adapting, and he's shit talked how the original Moriarty is. He's talked about like various aspects of the characters. And as a result, what did you know? It the BBC Sherlock's terrible.
I like.
Oh Jesus! Is that right? If I dipped my web?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I respect what you were saying, and I respect that I still like the shows, but I get why they are wrong. I get why they be bad.
I could get into the whole thing about the BBC Sherlock. I'm not going to. I've already talked too much about Scott Pilgrim tonight, but
yeah. Anyway, so
I think issue with that is that we have to recognize that Stephen Moffat is a horrible human being.
Terrible.
Yes.
First of all, he ruined Doctor Who for me and a lot of other people. And
you hear that, Stephen Moffat?
Quit. Yeah, Stephen
hear that?
Moffat can suck my dick. I hate that guy.
You hear that, Moffat? You hack! You've ruined all of British literature.
All right, so
Gaddis, you can stay though. That's the other guy who read Sherlock. He can stay. I like him.
Oh, I knew this is going to be a great topic to talk about. So, I guess knowing, I guess from our perspectives, like knowing what makes book to, I guess, live entertainment, that adaptation a little bit bad. Like, has there been a decent enough example? Like has there been an example where, from book to movie or from book to TV series, like, has it actually been a pretty good adaptation, like something that was good enough that you'd be like, oh, okay, you know what, this is actually pretty good? Because if I can start, I think the most notable example that I can really, I guess, talk about is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And I think the reason why I say that it was one of the better examples of a book being translated into or being adapted into a movie was because there wasn't really that much to adapt. Like, it's a love story between two cancer-struck kids, and that's not thing. I'm not trying to like throw any disrespect, but like, there's no complex world building. There's no like little nuances there's no little nuances that you kind of have to say for screen time. It's a simple enough story with enough of John Green's... Oh my god. Discord cut out again. Oh my god. So I figured out that Discord gives us 30 minutes before it cuts out on me. So I need to speak quickly. So like I was saying, my choice of a series that actually got adapted to a movie pretty well is The Fault in Our Stars. And like I was already saying, like there's not too much really to kind of worry about. Like as long as you have that kind of quirkiness that comes with a John Green book, and I think that's it. Like if you can nail John Green's quirkiness and that kind of style of or that kind of tone that he brings with his books, then you've pretty much got a pretty solid movie. And it was a pretty solid movie. Like Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort were great. They're really, really good. Had me rooting for them pretty much the entire time, and they had a really good chemistry. Like, so that's my pick. What about you guys?
I think that one's a good example, especially when you compare it to Paper Towns, because Paper Towns was not a good example.
Suck it. Paper Towns could suck it.
So I think for me, I have 2 books that were translated pretty well onto screen. So The City of Ember was a book I read as a kid and reread pretty much in every stage since then, like as a teenager, as an adult. And so that book was like, read it in school for the first time when I was like 8 or something. And when I realized there was a movie and we got to watch it in class after we finished the book, it actually did a really good job. Like, anyone who doesn't remember the plot of The City of Ember, it's basically kind of a post-apocalyptic world where people live underground, and everyone is like assigned a job essentially, and it's just about their lives and this girl who kind of finds their way out from underground. And the movie, I think, did a really, really good job. They didn't change very much. It was a children's book, so it was fairly able to adapt. There was no like crazy CGI or anything like that. The other one would be A Series of Unfortunate Events, the Netflix series, not movie.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not the movie. The Netflix series was really good because Danielle Handler, or Lemony Snicket, wrote a lot of the teleplay for the show. So there are lines in the show that are taken like right from the book, and their breakdown, I think, it's 2 episodes per book. And so I think that worked out really well, because that way they didn't really have to leave anything out, because they were pressed for time, because they had like 2 20-minute episodes, so they had like 40 minutes per book. And like, it was amazing. They did really well with casting, did really well with nailing how ridiculous the series is, while still being like serious, because fires and orphans and Count Olaf's eyebrow, everything. I think Years of Unfortunate Events, the TV show, did excellent job.
It's good. Marie-Soleil, what's your pick?
The only thing that I can think of at the moment is the Red Riding Hood in 2011, which was actually the movie.
Was that the I guess the mature telling with Amanda Seyfried?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
And although technically the book was based off of the movie, like, you read the book and the author tells about how she was on the set and she saw like how they were doing the movie and everything, and used that when she was writing the book. But I really liked it, and like when I read the book, I had to put the book down, and I'm like, this book is giving me nightmares because of how like detailed she got.
Mm-hmm.
But
like, what about it made it? I guess just like what was it about the book to movie, or in this case movie to book, that kind of translated pretty well?
They didn't cut out any details or anything, and like the book was able to put it into a lot more detailed descriptions of things than you saw in the movie. Like, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but there's one scene where they put a boy into this metal elephant thing and then light a fire under it because they're trying to get him to talk about who the werewolf is, although he can't really talk when he's in this thing. And like in the movie, yeah, you see him put in there and you hear him screaming, and in the books though it describes the smell of it, and it's just like, oh.
That's good. Okay, Gabe, how about you? What would your pick be?
I think the most recent one that I remember really enjoying from book to TV show was the Netflix Witcher series. I thought I remember I read the books a while back and I was a big fan of them, and then of course I played the games and I was a big fan of those. And I was a little worried about The Witcher going into it, but I thought they did a great job with it. Henry Cavill's Geralt is like, it's pitch perfect. It's like a perfect mesh of both sort of how the video games adapt him and how the book describes him. It's like a really nice little menage a trois of the two, and I think it adapts a lot of stuff that the games, of course, didn't get into because the games are set way after where the first book is set. But I thought they did an excellent job of just getting the characters and the sort of they adapted the world really well into the show. Mm-hmm. Like the world building on the show was really something else. They did a fantastic job there.
Can I just give a quick acknowledgement to the people who like were angry that Yennefer and Triss were supposed to be white? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Because
straight up.
Yeah, fuck you, because I want Anya Shalatra as Yennefer forever.
The crazy thing is, book wise, Anya Shalatra is accurate. That's how she's supposed to look. The games, like people got so angry about about them not casting white actresses to play Yennefer, and it's like they've taken the game look for her, and they've sort of gotten this into their heads that that's the canon look. Mm-hmm. That's not the canon look. She's like, I can't remember what it is. It's all fictional like world, so there's no real world setting for it. But she's like, it's like there's like some Mediterranean background. She's not like she's not white. She's not white.
Yeah, that's not to knack on CD Projekt Red's adaptation of Yennefer
either. Absolutely not at all. They did.
Fuck you, toxic fan base. Fuck you, toxic fan base. Anyway, like, I guess on an off note too, fuck those people who are saying Ariel can't be black.
Yeah, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I mean, she can do what she wants, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
She's a mermaid. Who cares?
Like,
she's a mermaid. It's not like
the fish people have melanin. Shut up.
Yeah, like, fuck you guys. Exactly. Like, stop it. If you were still complaining that like Yennefer should be white after an incredible performance that Anya Shalatra gave, you were actual garbage.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like, you guys remember Ned at the Museum? Movie with like Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
So you know how Rami Malek plays the mummy?
Yeah.
Pharaoh?
Yeah.
People were getting angry. They were like, got a white person to play a pharaoh, and it was like, he's literally from Egypt.
You're right,
it's like what the few times that you could probably be a little bit angry when it comes to a miscasting is like if the character if the real character themselves is like Mulan or T'Challa from Black Panther. It's like they are supposed to be this race and you just decided to cast them otherwise. But if it's Ariel, like this is a whole other thing, but like Ariel can be whatever the hell race she wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
honestly,
it's great that she's black. I'd personally love it if she were Asian. It doesn't matter which one, because all Asians are amazing. Hell, Ariel could have been white and I still would have been fine with that. But like people who were actually genuinely pressed that she was black is like, you stop it, you fucking racist.
Yeah, no.
It's like
people.
I think characters looking like the way they're described in the book. It's a nice thing to do, but it's not like you could tell me that fucking Danny DeVito was playing Ariel, and I'd be like, okay, Does Ariel still?
So
I want Danny DeVito in everything.
Can we petition him? Can we write him a very strongly worded, polite letter asking him to play Ariel? Because I need that.
Like, as long as Ariel is still acting as the same character, as long as she still has the same personality, I could give a fuck what she looks like in the movie.
Yeah. Anyway. So
It's been a tangent.
yeah, it's been a tangent. So I guess knowing what book to live entertainment adaptations do wrong and the few exceptions of when they do it right, like what would be one thing if you were to I guess recommend this to someone between like if someone were, oh my god, I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say, but just like what's one thing or what's a few things that you absolutely cannot miss when you are adapting a book to live entertainment?
In a word, respect. Like all in all, like even the ones that are different, like Princess Bride, the carrying tune is a constant respect for the source material. There's no, the best adaptations are the ones that have like some respect for what the source material was.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter is a good example of that. Like, I know all the directors and the screenwriters and people who worked on it were like totally in love with the series, and they were really happy about what they were doing. Like Chris Columbus, I think, directed the first one, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm super excited about it. You know, it's been really fun. We all had like a great time and everything." And I think that's why the movies ended up being good. Like, I just finished reading the first Harry Potter, and it's pretty darn close to the book.
The later movies get a little iffy, but that's just because there's a lot to put into them.
Yeah, the later books got like way too big, I think, to fit in one movie.
Yeah.
But the first like 3, I think, did a really good job, and like kept the main things. In the later books, like in 4, 5, 6, and 7, they kept the main points, which I think was important.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
Yeah. I guess
making changes is fine, but I think if you're a filmmaker and you're adapting a book, you have to understand what made the source material good, and from there you have to like be certain that if you are going to make a change, it's the change for the better. Because if you're changing something and you're making it worse, like why the fuck even bother?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like changing because of trends or whatever.
Yeah, like changing for the sake of like, I think it could be better like this, like, or this is more in line with whatever is on Twitter right now.
Yeah.
That needs to be in this.
Yeah, like I think for me, I have two things. So one of them is to, I guess, respect your characters. I guess the overall concept is to respect the source material, and for me, you have to not absolutely, but make your characters almost mirror copies when you translate it from a book to a movie, because oftentimes like it's because of these characters that stories get carried on or become so great anyway. Like, you can think of, like, there's this whole thing of like, you know, there aren't any real original stories anymore. It's only, you know, there are only like what, like six ways to tell a story nowadays. 6, 7 ways.
There's 7.
Yeah, so there's 7, so there's only really 7 ways to tell a story, but it's because of your characters sometimes, most of the time in my opinion, that really make your story so unique. Like, you can have an incredible story with a lot of really good world building, like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, I guess to some extent the Maze Runner, Hunger Games, all that stuff, where you have really engaging worlds. But to me, my thing has always been about the characters. I love investing in good character arcs more than anything, and that's what made, you know, Ron and Hermione 2 of my favorite characters from Harry Potter. It's what made, I guess because it's one of the first few series that I can really think of. It's what made Kaz and Inej from the Six of Crows duology 2 of my most favorite characters from that book, or from those 2 books. It's characters that really help keep or make a story original in a sense. And if you lose what makes them special, like if you kind of like, if you have to cut off their little nuances, then they're not the same character that people fell in love with, or people love to hate. Like, they're just copies now of. They're just now being marketed to a general audience rather than to the hardcore fan base. And I realize that, like, you know, you're not going to appeal to everyone, but if there was something special about these characters in the first place, let them be who they are on screen. Don't lose.
God, you are so correct. The best example of that is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I love Tim Burton. Adore him. It's wonderful. He changed like 3 characters. No apparent reason. Like, it had no bearing on the plot or how the movie ended or anything like that. He just changed them. And I don't understand why. Like, he changed their, like, familiarity, like, a different thing than it originally was. And I was like, excuse me.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a book where, especially a book like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, where it's literally all about these weird, you know, odd characters you have. You can't just go and change them for no reason.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that really bugs me too, because have you read all of the books?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it comes into play later on what their abilities are.
It didn't make sense.
No, and if they plan on doing any more movies, then they're kind of screwed themselves.
Yeah.
I don't think they're planning on doing any more movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they decide to do a TV show or something, I hope Tim Burton would at least be involved, because it is his style. It's like a very gloomy Burton-esque series, but I hope he, like, gets his shit together and does it properly if they decide to do any other adaptations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I guess my biggest comparison, or my biggest example of my point of keeping your characters unique is, I think, the 2 big franchises that emerged after the Hunger Games. So that would be, so under a single term, I'm putting the Hunger Games, Divergent, and the Maze Runner as one comparison. And the thing is, you can really tell a lot about Katniss. Like, you can describe a lot about Katniss's character and what makes her super cool and super, like, interesting to like a marketable audience. Like, they have gotten, I guess in my opinion, like, a decent enough representation of what Katniss was like from the books into the movies. But I cannot say the same for the main protagonist of the Maze Runner and the main protagonist of Divergent. And that should tell something, because I don't even remember their fucking name. But, like, I really cannot tell a key difference between the main characters of Divergent and Maze Runner that doesn't immediately kind of either feel the same or tie back to what Katniss was all about. Like,
yeah, those 3 books are like the same kind of genre, and they all came out around this, or they all gained popularity around the same time.
yeah.
The main character in the Maze Runner is Thomas, by the way.
Okay.
Name, like, just came to me, mainly because of Dylan O'Brien, but that's fine.
Yeah.
With the Maze Runner, I feel like that there was a lot going on. I feel like it's one of those things that I don't think it translated well onto, like, even if they had made a TV show, I don't think it would have translated very well, because there was, like, so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
But in the movie, they definitely didn't pay attention to the characters. Like, they definitely underutilized Newt, who was my personal favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the books way more often, and you really get to fall in love with him. And then, spoiler alert, he dies at the end, and that's why you feel so horrible. Like, in the movie, I didn't even see the 3rd movie. I didn't even know the 3rd movie came out, and I was, like, not interested in it at all, because my favorite character was, like
I don't have to care about this thing anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, so whereas the Hunger Games, I've watched all 3 movies, like, repeatedly. So I think Hunger Games did a decent job with the movie, except for their promotion of the romance, which was the whole point of the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't read Divergent or see the movies, so I have no idea about that.
Yeah. So I guess that's probably the ending point that I want to finish off this episode with. It's like, if Hollywood or if whoever, like Netflix, Amazon Prime or whatever, if they're gonna adapt any new series into a movie for a general audience, I think overall you just have to respect the material, like respect the characters, respect the world building. Guys, can you just a quick thing, I have the notifications on so I can hear I can hear the pings. It's kind of annoying. Please stop.
Okay.
Okay. Next time I'm gonna turn notifications off for Discord. But anyway, I guess, yeah, I think that's the overall point. Just respect the source material of these books. Like, it might not always translate into, it might not always translate well into a general audience movie, but at least it's still an original story. You have your original characters, you have your original premise, like you have the things that make it special. And if you suddenly start taking those things away, then not only are the hardcore fans of that series going to hate it, but the general audience just won't get the hype around it in the first place. Like, they won't understand what makes everything so special about these series. Like, they won't get why we love them so much. So yeah, like Hollywood, Netflix, if y'all are listening, by the chance that you are, don't forget that. Don't you fucking
Don't
forget
shit the
that.
bed.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you fucking forget that.
Before you make a movie or a TV show, read the damn book.
Exactly.
All of them.
Read the book and
Yeah.
understand what made it good, and understand that people fucking like that, and you don't have to automatically change it.
Yeah. And
Tumblr.
if you don't understand it, exactly, like, Tumblr exists, like Instagram exists, communities exist. You can talk to the people who do get it and make it so that, as long as you don't listen to all of them too much, because fanfics exist, like, don't go there yet. But like, if you if it's so hard to grasp what makes it so special, then talk to the people who bought into everything in the first place, because then they will help you translate it, at the very least, to a better audience, to a more general audience that will probably, hopefully, understand what makes it so special. Because at the end of the day, books are entertainment, and not everyone is going to get it. But at the very most, don't fuck it up, because then, if you don't screw it up, more people are going to buy into it in the first place. Like, more people are going to buy into it, and more people are going to start understanding what makes it all so good in the first place.
Yeah, because there's so many people who, after the Hunger Games came out, they didn't read the book. But then when they found out it was going to be made into a movie, they were like, well, now I got to read the book. Like, you get a whole new, like, branch of people reading the book just because they hear a movie is being made. So it's like, it's not necessarily that you need to cater to a general audience. It's just that you've now gained more of an audience. Just like mentioning the movie.
Yeah. Like, just do it right. There's your final point. And I guess that's where we'll kind of end it for now. So, Gabe, Jessica, you guys, all of our Instagram handles are going to be in the description. Marie-Soleil, are you okay with your Instagram handle being in the description too? Yeah? Okay, sweet.
Totally.
Sweet. So, I guess as a final thing, before we wrap up, I've been doing these final questions, and this might be a loaded one, but if there was a series that you would or would not want to see adapted, you can pick between either or, but you can only pick one. If there's a series that you would or wouldn't want to see adapted, which one would it be and why? And I guess I'll start. The series that I wouldn't want to see adapted is the Throne of Glass series.
Oh my god, yes.
And like Jessica and I, like, like for the people who have been consistently listening, like, it is a favorite. It's a favorite for the two of us, and there's so much complexity there there's so much complexity in that one series alone that I don't think a movie would definitely not do it justice. A series may, but I still don't trust it enough because the protagonist, Selena / Aelin, is incredible. She is a very well-rounded character. The side characters have a lot of personalities, and like I was talking about earlier, if they even screw up one thing about the personalities, I will hate the entire. I will shit on everything that the movie / TV show would eventually be. Like, I'll be done, man. Like, I'm fucking done. Anyway, what are you guys' picks? Hello? Oh no.
See, I read Aragon like a couple years ago or last year or something. Because again, I never read the books.
I
as
do
a
be
kid.
sad.
Hey, you're back.
So Discord crashed again, and I had just finished up my thing on the Throne of Glass series, but you know, as we're closing down the episode, we're talking about a series that personally we either would or wouldn't want to see adapted, and now it's someone else's turn.
I was talking before I got cut off by Discord because it hates me.
It hates me. It probably likes you. It hates me.
True. It does hate everyone. It's like Internet Explorer. It hates all of us. Always.
Yeah, but at least it's not slow, or at least like Internet Explorer is just slow as fuck. At Discord, like, at least Internet Explorer doesn't fucking crash.
True.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Discord. I love you. Kind of. It's a love-hate relationship.
So the series of books that I would not want adapted, and it's a little late for this, is the Six of Crows duology or Leigh Bardugo's other series,
100%
Shadow and
agreed.
Bone. But Netflix is apparently already making a series titled Shadow and Bone, but they have the Six of Crows as character is in the Shadow and Bone series, and I'm like, you've already ruined it. You took a character from one series of her books and put them in the other series of books. I'm already satisfied with your adaptation. So, no. So I think those books have such amazing imagery and character, and to me, they're like perfect books. Well, Six of Crows is. The Shadow and Bone has some issues, but mostly it's great. Definitely the Six of Crows books are like perfect to me, and I feel like even a TV show would it would not be able to compare to the books. But like I said, it's a little late because Netflix is already ruining it. So.
You can pull the plug right now, Netflix, if you're listening.
Netflix,
you can still do it.
Take that shit down. And
I love the series too. Yeah, I love Leigh Bardugo's work too. Don't you dare.
Excuse me, Netflix. How dare you hurt me like this after a series of unfortunate events was so good? You got my hopes up, and then you made Shadowhunters, and then this.
Yeah, like you
and
bastards.
Then the third season of Riverdale.
Oh my god.
Third season of Riverdale is just Shadowhunters level of bullshittery. It's oh.
Yeah. Okay. Marie-Soleil, what's your pick?
It would be Melissa Marr's Wicked Lovely series.
Would you would or wouldn't?
Would not. I do not want to see that because like it's a series about with fae and fairy creatures and everything, and I just can't see it translating well to screen because these are like inhumanly beautiful but also kind of like creepy in a way.
It'd be like Twilight.
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh yeah. Okay, Gabe, what about your pick?
My pick is.
Wait, would or wouldn't?
Absolutely would. I would actually murder someone to see this get like some kind of maybe like an animated adaptation or something. But it's from the same author as Scott Pilgrim is this book called Seconds, and it's fucking wonderful. And I would absolutely recommend everyone listening read it. It's a fantastic, adorable little book about time traveling mushrooms. It's great, and I would love to see it get a movie.
All right. Well, that brings us to another very hectic episode recording. But yeah, but with this ending to the episode, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you to my guests for coming on, and expect more stuff like this. If you have been listening regularly, then first of all, thank you so much. And we are hoping to start doing a lot more than just podcasts, even though this is super fun, but like we really do want to start getting into more creative projects soon, and it would mean a lot to us, like to all of us basically, to have a regular community outside of us to just be talking to. So if you like what we do, please hit subscribe. This is going up on our InkGuild YouTube channel. Follow us on our social media, and hopefully we'll have our own Instagram page soon, where who knows what kind of content we'll be posting up there. But yeah, this has been episode 4 of the InkGuild Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good night.